Hi, and welcome to Superintendent's Roundtable. I'm Deb Vinsel, the CEO here at Thurston Community Television, and it's our first roundtable for 2016. Periodically, we meet with the superintendents from the 4 large school districts in the county to talk about issues relating to education in our community. Again, I'm pleased to welcome to the roundtable our superintendents. I'll start to my left. We have John Bash from the Tumwater Schools, Raj Manhas from North Thurston Public Schools, Dick Cvitanich from Olympia School District, and Andy Wolf from Yelm Community Schools. I know you all have busy schedules. We're always very thankful when you take time to come and join us. So we've, rounded the corner on a new year. We're not quite halfway through the school year, but it's, getting close. And the legislature is poised to begin its work, so there's a lot going on. And I want to start with levies and bonds and what's coming up, because there's an election coming up in February. So Andy, I'm going to start with you. Why don't you share with us what's on the docket for Yelm relative to levies or bonds?
Thank you very much for having us here. So Yelm is running a replacement levy also this year, as most of the schools in Thurston County will be doing this time. But probably the bigger issue for us right now is we have a bond out there also, a construction bond. We have many unhoused students in aging facilities that we need to correct and get those going forward. So those are the 2 big things for us right now. The bond piece is an interesting thing. It's a $100 million bond, but every project in that bond will have a state assistance match, which is very important to our community. So really the local taxpayer burden is about $59 million, and then $41 million would be picked up by the state. So like what we tell our voters is or like my wife says, when you talk to women, tell them if you were going to Nordstrom's and said you could spend $59 to get $100 worth of stuff, would you be buy in? So we're hopeful that will do. The issues for us, again, unhoused students. We've grown by about 850 students from our last bond. And
that was in when?
2003. And really that growth has continued to happen. We grew by another 100 students this year. And then the projected growth is another 900 in the next 4 years. So we continue to build in Yelm. We continue to have great kids and success with our kids, but really the facility piece is really becoming tough for us now.
So we're going to project forward and presume the bond passes. So what's going to be manifested out of that? How does that physically?
So the 4 big projects is Southworth Elementary, which was built for 350 students, which now houses almost 600, would be torn down and rebuilt and would be able to handle about 675. Yelm Middle School, which was built in 1965 and would be torn down and rebuilt and would handle about 720. Prairie Elementary, which is about 35 years old, would be remodeled. The bones of that building are really good, but we need to do some infrastructure things to get it up. And really probably stay currently the same size, be able to handle around 600 students. And then the newest piece would be we would build a 9th grade campus beside our high school. Our high school right now is a 10-12 configuration, so we're K-6, 7, 8, 9 in our middle schools, and then 10, 12. It would allow us to bring our 9th graders back up there. And as the studies are showing, our 9th grade students are our most vulnerable students in the school system around the nation, and that generally that if they get one failing grade in their 9th grade year, they have a 60 to 80% better chance of failure for that. So we want to get them back up into our high school catch basin. And then also with that, with the Core 24 and the requirements that are coming down that we're facing down the road, we want to make sure that they're there. And then by moving the 6th graders out of our elementaries, that opens up 450 seats across our elementaries in the district. So that allows us to have capacity to handle the voter initiatives like 1351 and some of those things that we need to get going on.
So you would transition to K-5 for elementary, 6, 7, 8 for middle school, and 9 through 12 for high school.
Right. And the 9-12 piece is the 9th grade campus would be on the high school campus, but they would be a self-contained unit. There may be some walkovers eventually, but they would have their own lunchroom. As I think we can all attest to, when we hit 9th grade, it was kind of you ran that first week for your life, so you didn't get initiated by the seniors. And now it's much more structurally academic and the rigors of school and how your high school plan and beyond and what that looks like. And so we know that we need to do a great job doing that. Our middle schools have done that with our 9th graders, but it is a different feeling when you're down into 7, 8, 9 than when you're part of that high school setting as far as getting kids to look forward and what is going to happen.
It'll be a transitional opportunity for them.
Yeah, it's really a big transitional, and would have their own counselor, and that whole building would be focused on transitioning them for success through that high school and beyond. So.
Great. Okay, Dick, what's on the docket for Olympia?
Olympia School District, very similar to the Yelm School District. First is our maintenance and operation replacement levy, which is around $26 million. And our voters have been great. It's a replacement for what currently exists. And it really bridges the gap between what the state legislature provides school districts and the kind of programs that we really want to have in our school district, just like everyone else. Across the state, most school districts have an M&O levy to fund everything from extra teachers to instructional materials to activities, athletics. And when I go out and I talk to people, I say, this is really the meat and potatoes of what we do, and it bridges the gap for us that state funding doesn't provide. We also have a $160 million capital facilities plan. It's phase 2 of a plan that was developed by citizens prior to 2012. And we had a 15-member citizen committee working very hard for 8 months to craft a recommendation to our school board in early fall. And I think our school board, and I certainly am very proud of what our citizens recommended. And there are a number of pieces to this. First, over the next 10 years, we're expected to grow by about 1,400 students. And I think in one sense, we might have been able to handle that within our school district with portables and the facility, really cramming the facilities, removing technology labs, et cetera. But with Initiative 1351 and the reduction of class sizes, we love the reduced class sizes, but it didn't provide space. So if you think of a classroom and let's say you had 36 students in a classroom, which is far too many, and you didn't have classroom space, you might put 2 teachers in that classroom to meet the law. But our Citizens Committee, and we frankly don't feel like that's the best way to go, so we're trying to create space. The other driving issue for our Citizens Committee was portables. Well, actually, all schools have undergone safety reviews. And we have a good number of portables. They sit alone outside and away from schools. And some of them lack running water, and it's not the best educational atmosphere for learning. But from a safety perspective and what we've seen across the nation in terms of our schools, our community has said we don't want our students in portables. We want a different type of environment. So in 5 of our elementary schools, which have been traditionally relatively small, around 300 students, 325, we're building 2-story, we're going up instead of out. You're not going to see a lot of out in school construction much anymore, just because of all of the different entries. So we're going to go up so we can control entry. And our schools will begin to grow to around 450 to 500, which is a change, but certainly from a staffing and use of financial resources makes more sense. In addition, Olympia High School will grow. It's a growing school. It's close to 1,800 students, as Andy mentioned, with the new state requirements. We really are underserving our students in terms of science labs, where we have lab sciences being taught in rooms without gas or water. So we're proposing to construct a 22-room building, standalone building out by our athletic fields. And I'll mention a couple more pieces. We will be doing some remodeling of some of those elementary schools that are going to have the mini buildings. It's been 26, 28 years since they've been touched. And then finally, on the west side, and this is really important to our community, Capitol High School is going to receive a new synthetic turf field. There aren't very many fields for Little League use and school use in our community. We have a great park system for adults going out and getting some quiet time, but not a great many fields. So we have a partnership with the City of Olympia Parks. They maintain some of our fields if we can give them space for the Little League programs. And we think the addition of a all-season field at Capitol High School will not only serve our students at Capitol High School, but it will also serve our community really well.
So is that down on the ball field at
It's
Capitol?
right where the current field is right now. So our girls and boys soccer teams, for example, can play their home games there. We'll still only have one big stadium like Ingersoll, like most school districts have one stadium. And then we would also propose that we expand the theater at Capitol High School. Olympia High School has a lovely performing arts center. And Capitol High School's theater is a little undersized. We can't hold a class meeting in there. When you go to an event, for example, our Marshall students put on The Lion King last year, and I like to go to these events, and my wife and I, okay, let's get there. We're going to get there on time. And when you get there on time, there are no seats left. And so we're going to construct a new theater on the backside of Capitol High School that'll meet that need for a growing enrollment. So a lot of focus on both sides of our district, which we think makes sense. A lot of focus on safety and really the response to the growing enrollment the next 10 years, which we expect.
Great, thanks. Raj.
Well, we, first of all, I want to start with the bond. We had a 2014 bond passage of $175 million. I want to thank the community for amazing support, 68% we got for that, and added another $50 to $55 million from the state. So it's almost $250 million investment back in the community. And we feel it right there, the businesses, the city, everyone. So it's local folks working and employed, and so it's a great thing. And we are really, our staff is doing an amazing job. We are on track, on time, within budgets, and we have so many projects I can't even count, but I'll just touch major ones. We have a new middle school opening called Salish Middle School in fall, and actually it's ahead of schedule. So it's really moving forward very well.
And where is it located?
It's up in the, let's see, it's, the address is Campus Way, and what's the other street there? I'm forgetting the name. Up in the Hawks Prairie area.
Oh, in Hawks Prairie, okay.
Yeah, and Meridian,
Right,
that area
in that
there.
area.
And it's going to be our 5th middle school.
Wow.
We already have one smaller, which is Aspire, and 3 others. So they all will be 6-8. So we have been transitioning to 6-8. So starting fall, it'll be all 6-8 middle schools. The other major one is North Thurston High School. Huge construction going on there, and a local contractor again, and it's doing an amazing job. Evergreen Forest, they're all still in the works. A lot of work has been done, but they are under construction while we are still functioning there. And River Ridge, Camachan, and pretty much every school will be touched from safety, security standpoint, but also from technology standpoint. So we are really pleased with the work which is going on. So again, I want to say thanks to the community for reinvesting in the future for our kids and ourselves too. The levy we have, as has been said by my colleagues, every 4 years. We decided some time ago, I think a few years ago, that we will kind of do it at the same time, because some of them was 2, some were 4 before. So that is really a great thing, and that's why we bear always the same signs, and then this is kind of working together. This is information for our community, and it'll be a replacement levy for us, and it's about 21% of our operating budget. And I just want to share for the community's sake that over the period of time, that levy has become part of the local basic education funding, really, as we get into discussion on the funding by the state. So 21% is a huge amount of money, and in our case, it's almost 275 some staff, teachers and others who are really
that are funded through the levy.
Funded by the levy. And it's again is a replacement levy. Our bond was passed, as I said, 2 years ago, and we are okay for next 6-7 years for the bond part. We'll be managing our resources very well. And one of the other things I want to touch is, it has been covered quite a bit, I think, in the media, that our board and the staff and the community came together. We did a major boundary shift change. Because we are opening a new middle school, we had to make changes anyway. But the board took that opportunity to really balance the whole enrollment in all areas of the region. For example, our River Ridge High School has about 1,000 kids, and whereas Timberline is approaching 1,800, and we have North Thurston High School 1,500-1,600 range. So now I think over a period of time it will be phased. they'll be all balanced. So that means it's less money. I mean, we don't have to build another high school for
Right.
some time. So it will be really good for our community, and we are thankful to the board and the community coming, because some of these things are difficult, because people don't want to change sometimes. The change is difficult. And I want to say just thank you to the community for supporting this major shift, which will be really good for our school system.
Great. John, what's going on in Tumwater?
Well, similarly, we have a replacement levy on the ballot February 9th, and so like Raj said, we're all donning our buttons today, and we appreciate you wearing one too to remind people to vote on that important election day. The other thing I would like to reiterate is the importance of the partnership here between school districts. When we run these things together, we actually save taxpayers some dollars just in terms of the efficiency around the cost of elections and voters' pamphlets and things like that. In addition, we all enjoy the support of a citizens committee, and we know that those people are also collaborating with one another in our community, which we deeply appreciate. Our replacement levy, like Raj said, makes up a significant portion of our operating budget of roughly 19%. And unfortunately, our state has not yet fully funded education, and that's been well covered by the media here with the last full legislative session, and we're hopeful they'll make some continued progress during this short 60-day session. But in the meantime, we have a duty and a responsibility to our systems, our communities, to make sure that we continue funding the comprehensive programs that they've come to expect and enjoy. And that's really what our levy pays for. So we emphasize, as we go out and explain this, that it is a replacement levy for that which is expiring here in 2016. In Tumwater, we've decided to honor a commitment that was made in 2014 when we also ran and passed a bond issue that will touch every single building, and that was that we would keep our total school tax rate at or under $5.94 per thousand, and our proposal on the ballot honors that promise. And depending on market conditions and real estate values, we also think that's a conservative projection. And so we're keeping our promise, and in this particular levy, it will not purchase a whole lot of new things. It simply allows us to continue providing the program that we're currently providing. And like the other districts, we're pleased to be able to migrate from a 7-8 middle school model to a 6-8 model, in large part due to the support from our voters for the bond issue. However, our first project will be Peter G. Schmidt opening this coming fall, and that was the first major project in the Tumwater bond. We have started the design work for both of our middle schools, where each of those schools will see an additional classroom wing, some added PE health space, performing arts space, and then after that, all of our schools will also see some upgrades to the facilities, but also increased classroom space because of what Dick mentioned earlier, and that is all-day kindergarten and reduced class sizes are increasing the demand for classroom space. And so that's what's happening and coming in Tumwater.
Wow, it's so exciting to see what's going on. And I remember when the concept of running the levies, or all at the same time, is just when it came around and we started seeing the black and yellow signs. And I do have to give a big thumbs up to whoever came up with this idea of a joint campaign, because it really, as you drive around our community and you see the yellow "Vote Yes for School" signs, it makes a very different impact than seeing a blue sign that says "Vote for Olympia Schools" and a green sign that says, it's a community effort, and that schools in any part of our community are important for all of our communities. So I really appreciate the campaign from that promotional perspective, because it speaks to the entire community as to the importance of all of our schools. So
Important to note too that it's not just the bigger districts around; it's all of
It's all the
Thurston County.
districts.
It's really everybody.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing. The Rainiers and Toninos and Rochester
Right.
are all in. So that's really nice.
So let's loop around, since we're talking bonds and levies now, and the legislature is due to convene soon. Let's talk a little bit about what, if anything, you've heard about plans that the legislature may have, if there's something bubbling, or is there anybody in particular that's really trying to move forward on funding? It seems like it's, you know, it's our perennial discussion is what's the legislature going to do about funding? This is supposed to be the short session. You know, we'll reserve reserve judgment on whether that's going to actually happen. Dick, why don't I start with you? And, you know, have you heard anything? And I mean, feel free to jump in on this conversation because it's pretty wide-reaching.
Well, I think for our group, there are two major issues. There might be more depending upon your district, but the first is what people have been terming the levy cliff, and the second is really focused around substitutes and making sure that we have substitutes to handle classrooms. There's a huge shortage in that area, but I want to go to the levy cliff first. I think people have heard that term, parents and community members.
And what does it mean?
That mean? The legislature, I'm sympathetic to the challenges that they face. They don't know how much revenue is going to be raised every year. Right. And several years ago, they talked about the ceiling for school maintenance and operation replacement levies dropping down. And that bill, if you will, is still the
pending.
The time is coming for that to happen. And for us, the Olympia School District, the big challenge is if that takes place, even though there's this conversation about more funding coming for school districts, for us, if that law takes effect, it's a reduction of $3.1 million in 2017-18 and $7 million in 18-19. And that actually is 28% of this replacement levy. So you heard all this talking about replacement levy. That's really important to us. And in our school district, again, it's a 28% reduction in the amount of money that we might be able to collect from our local citizens who are supporting our schools. So that, I would say, from my perspective, is our big issue, and one that we hope the legislature will address by saying, you know, we need to stop this because districts across the state are not going to be able to deal with this issue. It reduces the funding so much.
Well, it's just taking money out of one pocket and sticking it in the other. You just kind of do this thing. So, yeah. Anybody else want to jump in on this?
I would just add that in Tumwater, for that same 12-month period of time, it would mean a $3.6 million loss of levy funding that voters, we hope, would have already approved.
Yeah.
And so we believe this is an easy legislative fix because all it takes is for them to simply extend the funding model that's currently in place but set to expire. That would allow us to collect the amount of levy dollars that we currently can and also receive another source called levy equalization in the way that that's currently fashioned. And so basically I would call it our most urgent issue because if they don't take action this session, we all will have to set about this spring the difficult conversation about what we're going to have to cut. And so as I'm meeting with legislators, and we all are meeting with them routinely, this is one of our key messages. And I would just add that Dick's top two, I think, are the top two for all of us, and that is we continue to see a significant teacher shortage, not only in substitutes, but in hard-to-fill areas, and they're getting harder to fill, special education, math and science. And it's even spilling into what used to be pretty easy to fill, and that's in elementary school positions. And so if they do nothing else in the short session, one thing we're really encouraging them to consider is lifting the current restrictions on retirees from being able to substitute for us without facing an economic penalty in their retirement. And we're optimistic and hopeful that there will be a provision for that this session, but who knows?
I'll add, I think in general what you asked is this is a sort of ongoing discussion. It has been a long time since, you know, we have heard this, well, we're going to fix this. Now this whole cliff, you know, so-called levy cliff or funding cliff is just related to the fact that at one point in time the legislature said, well, by this time we'll get everything fixed, so we don't need this. So in reality it's a local money which they increased with kind of ghost money kind of thing, and now it's going away, but they haven't fixed the other side. Now what John said is really powerful. I believe that the sole shortage of teacher shortage, not only in our state, nationally, it's a big problem for our country. And if we as a state and we as a nation don't pay attention now and wait for next 4 or 5 years, this could be really going in the wrong direction for not finding teachers. And because teachers need to be paid better with our economy, with technology, with everybody else, we need to be competitive, and we shouldn't be. We should be attracting some of the best students coming to the teaching profession, and they should be very proud of that going into their profession. The other thing I want to say is that other than the salaries, this, when they say it's a short session, when the big session comes, then again, we generally wait till the last minute. At least they can come up with some basic skeleton plan that this is how we're going to do it. Just moving money from local to state and then redistributing is not going to solve the problem. They have to look at some taxation, some way, additional money, and we are not expert in that. It's more of the legislature work, and that's what they need to at least come up with some ideas. And then even if they can do a lot this year, but then they'll be ready, then they are not waiting for
because next year is a budget year.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
So
Deborah, there's a certain amount of irony in this when you think about the sort of the potential reduction in the levy, is that when you look at where you're going to cut, the reduction in revenue, 3.1 million for us and 6.9, 85% of our budgets are staffing. So you reduce in staffing, you'll have substitutes available. That might help solve that problem, but we won't be able to meet the 1351. So there are all these conflicting issues coming in, and they're ironic might be the wrong word, but when I think of it, it just shows how mixed the system is, and you have a law here, a law here, and a law here that kind of conflict with each other.
I guess my bottom line, they've said it very eloquently. Yelm would be at loss for dollars too. We're not at the levy cap in our district. We're a mom and pop district. We don't have a big business infrastructure, so it wouldn't be as drastic. But the LEA side, and that's the equalization for schools that are property poor, that would be an impact for us. So we know that we'd be losing revenue, which was for our students. But I think this legislative session, the most important thing that has to come out of it, people have to come across the aisle. We have to forget about what party we are. We have to forget about where, and we need to provide hope. We need to provide a plan that teachers and people coming into our profession, which is the greatest profession there is, it's the hope of our nation, that they can buy into, that they can look forward to and say, yes, this is important and where we're going. And right now, I think we have so much infighting that when we look at, for us to plan forward, we want to be 10 years out. We want to think about innovative programs. They want us to increase the academics of our students and the rigor and get them to be more talented. Well, that's great, but you have to have resources to do that, and you have to know what you're going to have to be able to plan for that. So for me, I just hope that this legislative piece, I know there's going to be a lot of talking going on, but I hope that we can see the rudiments of a plan. I think we can get an understanding of what's going to happen forward, because we need to go to the people who are on the front line, our teachers and our parapros, and even our maintenance and operations folks and bus drivers, and provide them with some hope that where they've invested their life to give back to kids, there will be an investment back to them to make this happen. And that's what I look mostly for in this session, is that we can have something to hang our hat on.
And also want to add that we as a group here, not only us, but the whole county superintendents, we did a kind of get-together of legislators from both sides of the aisle recently. And now we are again planning in February to meet together and talk about some of these issues, so they are getting the direct feel from our all systems here. So we are doing our part, and we are hoping that the legislature can do some areas.
Well, from your lips to their ears and their hearts,
Yes.
I hope,
Yes.
it moves forward. It just seems that every year, it's, and you're right, Andy, the partisan divide that slows so many things down and prevents so many things from happening is just frustrating to watch from the outside looking in, when you see, children who have so much potential, and yet our schools are hamstrung in so many ways from helping them reach that potential. So here's hoping the legislature gets it done. Let's talk a little bit about a more national look at education. No Child Left Behind has sunsetted or faded away or has been renamed. I don't know quite how to look at this. And there's this new act, the Every Child Achieves Act. I think, first of all, can we talk a little bit about what the heck does it mean? You know, what is it and how does it impact us locally? What do you all have to do in order to be compliant with this act? So who wants to start? Raj, you want to start with this one?
Well, I'll start, and then others can, of course, chip in on this. I think that was really a very dysfunctional, ineffective law, what we had before,
No Child
Left Behind. And I think this is a beautiful, wonderful step forward by our federal government and legislature there. What it will do is that it will eliminate that, AYP, we called it, every yearly progress kind of reports. And the funny part is that last year, when we reported, most of the schools were failing. On one hand, we are saying we are performing so well, in so many different ways, and we are. And here is with new standards. I want to sidetrack a little bit. New standards, Common Core. This was the first time we could compare our state with other states, on same standards, same tests. And our data person did a little analysis for a board recently, and 11 states were compared. Our state was one of the top performing states. So we are performing really well, but then we were sending these notices to the community. So that will go away. And there were a lot of other requirements, set asides. You have to set aside so much money. You have to do this tutoring outside. You can see how many constraints and challenges they are put together for. But now I think that what they're saying is states will have more control over local. So our local people, legislature, and all of us, we can work together and come up with what we need to hold ourselves accountable, no question. But it will not be the way it was handled by the federal government. That's where I'll...
So how did that specifically impact the North Thurston schools? Are there programs that are being implemented or programs that are being sunsetted or?
Well, for example, if we have to set aside so much money for then you are not using all the resources, every year, because you are going to say, no, you need to do this. And then it's all became theoretical stuff. We don't have to waste that kind of energy and time. We'll just use the resources to do the right thing for every child.
And move forward.
One of the things that's challenging about this is this just came out really, and it's a 1,000-page document when you look at it in its entirety. And so the impact, just like when we heard No Child Left Behind or the AYP things, it takes a year almost after implementation, after they kind of give it, for us to, that trickle-down effect for us to really understand how that goes. And so what we do know is that before, what Raj was talking about, many of our students, they had the bar, is what 100% of your students had to get over this bar, this magical number.
To meet this standard.
And we all have strengths and weaknesses, and not everybody's going to be as strong in some areas. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't be progressing towards the bar. But schools were then being penalized if not all their students. So special needs children who didn't get over some of the bars and things like that. It was our ESL learners, different things like that. I equate it to if you said to become a school superintendent, you'd have to be able to swim the Columbia River. Okay. Well, not all of us are going to be able to do that. So we're not all. Yeah. And so. It's good.
Go down the stream.
It's one of those standards. Sorry about that. It's one of those standards that we have to be relevant to what the needs of our students are. So I think that the local control piece will be better in here. I think we need to really focus on what we can do at our level. Some of what Raj was talking about is that with title funds there were setbacks if your kids didn't perform. Then they wanted you to set 20% of that money back until February when they released it. Well, in a school year, when we're planning the year before, all of a sudden 20% of an income or of a pot of money, and all of a sudden they say, now you have it from February till the end of the school year. Well, you really can't put new staff in. You really can't get curriculum in place. It was really kind of it was handcuffing this to be able to really what they do. And more times when you set that 20% back, you actually took people away from being in front of kids because you needed to have this dollars. So that impacted. So a lot of this, I think, will give us more freedom. I think Accountability is going to be a huge piece there. I do think there's a lot to be uncovered yet. The testing should be reduced a little bit as far as how they look at some of what the testing will be, which I think we got into this a little bit of an over-testing norm. But I think there is, I kind of want to say, I'm optimistically happy, but I kind of got to be cautious here a little bit too about how it looks like.
One thing I want to say is that I know sometimes we say some things about legislators, and in this case, our own Senator Murray played a huge role. I'm sure a lot of other people worked on it, but we appreciate her help in really sorting this out, national level.
Recently, in December, I was invited to meet with Congressman Denny Heck, and his question for us was, what now? We've passed this reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. What do you need? Well, I'm going to go back to one thing Andy said, and that is, it takes a while for the Department of Education at the federal level to make sense then of this legal document and then issue guidance to the states around, okay, so here's what you can do. But overall, the great news is, number one, the right side of the aisle and the left side of the aisle had to come together in order for this to happen. And if you had asked us 6 months ago if we thought that would happen, I think most of us would probably have said,
Probably
no, I
not.
don't think so. So we have some hope that whatever it was that broke that gridlock, maybe that'll continue, and hopefully it rubs off on Washington State, because we could use that same sort of collaboration here. But a key piece of that is not only handing testing and some of the other things back to the states to design and implement for themselves, but we talked about the teacher shortage. And a key piece of the federal law has been around this thing called highly qualified requirements for teachers. And the federal government then dictating what the standards will be in order to declare a person highly qualified to teach or not. And that has been extremely problematic for us. So I hold out some hope, and I told Congressman Heck, if you can help us with anything, make that your top priority with the Department of Ed. And to that end, I contacted our state agency, OSPI, and they already have a proposal for Washington State on the current secretary's desk awaiting action that would give our state permission to move forward this hiring season with a revised, highly qualified model that would fit better for Washington State and hopefully help us address this teacher shortage.
An example of that is most of us are impacted by military families because JBLM is a great neighbor down the road. So we'll have teachers, spouses who are teachers who have taught for 15, 20 years. They moved to our community, and they're successful in the state that they were, but they were not highly qualified in Washington State, so we couldn't hire them without getting them through a process of tests. And sometimes that gets bogged down and took so much time that we were actually starting schools with substitutes and then trying to get them in place at the point in time. So it really became a problem at barriers. It put more barriers up than it did to help the educational process in some way. So that's what, so the layperson can understand that what we're talking about out there, it really makes it easier.
Okay.
There are a couple other things that were down in the weeds of this, and I think we've covered it, but there should be a little bit more money for our most poverty-ridden schools in area Title I. We should be able to get a few more resources. The impact aid, which really affects North Thurston and Yelm, they're looking at a little bit more funding, and JBLM would be part of that impact aid, big piece of property there. And the one piece that I don't want people to lose sight of is that there still is a measure of accountability. Students will still be taking assessments in grades 3 through 8 in reading and mathematics. There still will be science assessments. There will still be one high school assessment, but there's still some conversation going on what that looks like, and could it be the SAT? What will each state design? But I think the fundamental piece here is that by and large, school improvement efforts will be driven at the state level as opposed to the federal level, and I think we all appreciate that. And really, one last comment before we put No Child Left Behind to rest, because there were a great many flaws in it. I would still like to say there is one piece that, and I know not everyone agrees with me, but I really appreciate the way it focused achievement spotlight on non-English speaking students and students in poverty. Again, there are a lot of things that didn't work in that law, But I think that's why you've heard from different groups in the country who reflected minority communities saying, don't lose sight of what you did with No Child Left Behind for our student populations. And I think it was kind of a big club, if you will, when it first came out. But I think as school districts, our focus is clearly there now, where maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it wasn't as strong as it could have been.
Okay. Well, thank you. So let's move on to how our community supports schools. I kind of got things a little bit out of order. We've talked about bonds and levies and how the voters in our community are traditionally supportive of our schools, but it takes more than just the voters. And I know that you all have a lot of partnerships with organizations and business and groups and municipalities in the community. So why don't we talk a little bit about how those partnerships benefit the schools and anything special that's going on. So I'm going to start with you, John, and your partners in Tumwater.
Sure, and I'm going to go back to something I shared last time we were here, and that is I was struck, because this is my first year in Tumwater, with the outpouring of generosity by not only our business community, but our own staff and many parents, our PTA groups, but the outpouring of dollars and donations to make sure every kid started school with a backpack, with school supplies that they needed, with a sports physical, if that's what it was. But basically breaking down any barriers for our students and families who can't afford all that it costs to get ready for a new school year, including new clothes and those kinds of things. Well, that theme continued, and I may be skipping ahead to a quick story, but my example would be we have a holiday family program that our Tumwater Lions Club has coordinated for several years. And it happens during the holiday season, and the idea is kids, when they start school, don't just need help then, but those families also deserve to celebrate the holiday like anyone else, and money shouldn't be the barrier. And so this year they served a record 400 plus kids and families, where they not only received gifts, but they received clothing items because of the winter weather. And we partner with them by helping with school buses, transport donations from across town, and it all descends on our school board room, and they take over that room for about a 4-week period where they organize these packages for families that line up with wish lists that our kids actually develop and send. And then our staff, especially our school counselors, help match families with donors. And we also had 22 businesses or agencies step in and say, we want to be part of that, give us some shopping lists and we'll go out and take care of that. And so again, we hit a record high with that this year, and it's just another example of how the community comes together to say schools are often considered the center of the community, and this is one of those ways where in a real positive way we've touched the lives of families and in a way that's heartwarming. And so I'm proud to be part of that, and I know Tumwater's not unique that way. This happens in the other communities too.
Well, thanks for sharing. Andy.
You know, all the things that John just said are in our district too. So one of the things that I think the center of Yelm is we have a business partnership program in Yelm. So we have 48 businesses that actually pledge money directly to our schools. So they partner with the school, so each one of them would come in and either do in-kind or dollar donations to that building. Whether you're in elementary, so you may have 6 businesses that are supporting that elementary, and giving them money to do the little extra things and being invited in and out. And that's a great piece that kind of is very representative of Yelm itself. And as you know, we are not a business-heavy community as far as the big, the big box stores and things. So it's really mom and pop businesses kind of getting that done for us. Some of the other things that we have out there that are, I think, all our local civic groups, the Lions, the Rotaries, all those groups, they're very evident in our schools. The Chamber, they're always, nominating Students of the Month, coming through, eyeglasses, backpacks, working on the backpack situation, things like that. And then we have a local group called Dollars for Scholars, which every year they raise money throughout the year. They plan for a big auction, which usually raises between $140,000 and $225,000 in one night. And that's just for scholarships for seniors for that year. And they're working on an endowment fund. So they partner with us quite regularly. And then we have our citizens group, who also is a group that they're the ones that are running our campaign right now for our bond and levy. And just this morning, there was a local businessman who funded a breakfast for all our business community to come while we spoke about the facts of the bond and levy to that, and provided the breakfast for them to be in that situation. So in Yelm, it's really is Yelm Community Schools. And beyond that, when you talk about partnerships, we have about, I think last year we had 1,800 volunteers in our schools. And so we have a person that has to go through, and we do the whole background check and screening on all those people. But that's because we want our doors to be open. We want the people to feel like this is their buildings and their schools, and we're involved. So that is pretty much a countywide feel, I think, that we really want to be partnerships with our folks and work down that era, or that aisleway or pathway with them. So that's kind of where we are.
Great. Dick?
I just feel very fortunate to have the number of volunteer groups in our community. There's just a wide range. Olympia Juniors programs create access for our students to the performing arts at the Washington Center. The Olympia School District Education Foundation literally funds our 5th grade time at Camp Sispus for outdoor learning, and the Principal Emergency Checkbook Fund that meets needs of individual students from clothing to food, in some cases rent. STEM Pals, we've got a tremendous growth in robotics in Thurston County in all of our schools, and STEM Pals is our booster group that raises money because it's expensive and something that we can't do. South Sound Reading Foundation is a part of all of our school districts. But I'm going to give a special shout out to a fellow by the name of Steve DeSalle. And Steve came to us from United Way, and thank you, United Way, as a volunteer coordinator. Well, we like Steve so much, and we value the volunteers in our school that we now employ Steve for a number of hours per week. And I want to give you a little bit of data. 2015-16, we've had 3,500 volunteers in our school. That's a lot of people, and average 4,500 hours per month. And these are people that are working with kids. They might be going on field trips. And Steve has just managed to create a system for the background checks. We now have people go in and they have their picture taken, because safety continues to be an issue, but they check in on a computer, badge is printed so everyone knows who's who. But those volunteers, along with this group, are just integral to our school district. And if Steve is watching this, Steve, we love you.
Thank you. And
So
Raj?
I think a lot of this stuff has been said, and we do the same. I would say that few highlights I want to come up with is partners in education is more like what Andy was saying. We call it pie partners. It's businesses. So every school is connected with at least 2 businesses. So that's 42 at least, and they're growing. And they want to be part of, but not only they give X amount of money. I think there's some requirement that you use this kind of money, but also they go into schools, learn about schools, they become fans of our schools and the kids, what they do. And Lacey Loves to Read is another program, which is City of Lacey, our library there, and Lacey Chamber work together. And our own Courtney has been involved quite a bit in this. This year we invite some author from, prominent author, and this time it's Newbery Honor author Kwame Alexander, and it's coming. So it will be on February 17th and 18th in our area there. And it's really amazing event hosted by different groups and will be done. And we do regularly bus tours where we invite our seniors, business leaders, ambassadors. We have 250, 300 some people on our ambassador list. The information goes out to them on a regular basis. We have a multicultural advisory council. This is again partnership with City of Lacey. We do an ethnic festival every year, and this year it's on February 13th, and it's at St. Martin's University, their stadium there. And it's just an amazing event. I've been pretty much every year there. Hundreds and thousands of people show up from the whole region and celebrating our diversity as an area. And then we feel, of course, our foundation and Rotaries and Lions Clubs and all of them, they do amazing work. At this time, I think we have close to 500 some homeless kids. John touched earlier. It's more of the, providing support to these families. I do not feel we ever feel that we cannot do that, to be honest. So food or whatever else, the backpacks. So this is, again, heartfelt thank you to our community, all community members who are doing this amazing sport to us.
Okay. Well, we have a few minutes left, and I always like to save some time. Did I get around? I got everybody on that one. Yeah, okay. Sometimes I forget where I started. I always like to save a little bit of time to have a special story that, if you were out in the schools since our last meeting and something special that you want to share with us, a fun little story about something that's going on. And Andy, we're going to start with you.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm most excited about this year that touched my heart was our partnership with the Nisqually Nation. The tribal grounds are right beside our school, and I grew up in Yelm and graduated from Yelm High School, and some of my best friends were the McLeods and the Peters and these different families, and I knew nothing about their culture. And this year, through their canoe journey that they have coming this year, that will be an influx of all the Native American tribes coming to this area. They've gone around to our schools and they're doing the canoe journey assembly, and they're showing Native dancing and beadwork and the cedar hats and just doing this. And it's just very touching for me and to realize what a rich culture we have right down the road. And our kids are just, my wife's a 4th grade teacher and they love it, and they've just really bought into that piece. So very happy for that piece and that connection that we have with the Nisqually tribe and just what they're doing in our school. So that's really lightened my heart.
Thanks. Dick?
Just a couple things. One, just before the holiday break, I had opportunity to attend many concerts, and I'm grateful and thrilled that the concert halls were packed, and whether it was an orchestra concert or band or vocal music, it's just really terrific, the support we had and the quality of the programs. The other is, on Monday, I really felt popular because it was a snow day. And we don't often feel popular in our roles, and I can't tell you, people were thrilled. Very difficult for a guy who worked in Idaho for 6 years to cancel or delay school for 2 hours when there was 1/16 of an inch of snow on the ground. However, the safety and the ice, etc. So that was kind of a fun day. And I don't want this to pass, and I'm sure we'll do this at the end, but one of our colleagues that we really appreciate and respect is going to retire at the end of the school year.
Heard that.
And Raj has been a tremendous leader in his school district and really in our community. And I value working with him. And sometimes these jobs can be kind of lonely. And he's just been a tremendous asset to our entire community. So I want to publicly thank him. I know we all feel the same way.
Your turn.
Well, I'm still here for a few months, so I'll talk about that later, but thank you. So I think the part I'm really inspired by is that, remember I talked about whole child behavior, positive behavior program, discipline issues have gone down, and we signed up maybe the first school system in the state to be a compassionate school system. So in every paper we have is a compassionate school district. And then a few months ago, City of Lacey, they wanted to do it. So they have become compassionate city. May not be the first city in the state, but at least they are partners. So we are, as partners, we are hosting together at River Ridge High School on January 23rd. It's a Saturday, 8:30 to 11:30. It's going to be a compassionate community forum, where we are inviting community from everywhere. Whoever can come, please come. Because the idea is, if we are a compassionate community, we are we are sporting kids, we really take this work seriously, that we need to be supportive of each other. A lot of the issues in our schools will go down. So it's all student-focused, kid-focused, but I think community is part of the students, and because that's where they spend most of the time. So for their social, emotional well-being, this has become part of our being as part of the system, and I'm very proud of that work.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us be here. So,
You're welcome. Yeah. And John?
Well, I'm going to echo Dick's congratulations to Raj and the appreciation, having worked with you for 5 years and learned a whole lot from you. I think that's benefiting me now as a superintendent in Tumwater. So we wish you the very best, and we know you're not finished yet, nor will we let you. Yes. Congratulations. I guess the story that comes to my mind is all of us right now are on the speaking circuit around our levies and bonds, and that includes parent groups. I happened to be at Peter G. Schmidt in December sharing this information and answering questions, and I also shared my appreciation for their donation to the Holiday Family Program I mentioned. After I said that, one of the parents there raised her hand and she said, well, you're new. Did you know that every single activity we plan and organize for our kids and families is free of charge? And that we've been doing that at Peter G. Schmidt for years. And I didn't know that, and I was impressed to hear that. And their fundamental reason, it's where one of our highest concentrations of free and reduced price lunch families attend school. And so they want to make sure that nobody is barred from participating simply because they can't afford a gate fee or anything like that. And they plan several wonderful events for families throughout the year. And so that's something that stuck with me. Another way that Peter G. Schmidt cares, Tumwater cares, all these school districts in Thurston County truly care.
Great. Well, gentlemen, it is that time. I want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. I know that we will be getting together at least one more time before the end of the school year, so I know we'll see you at the table again, Raj. But I do want to thank you all for being here. And I want to ask our viewers to, consider the bonds and levies that are on the ballot on February 9th. It's a special election. It's one of those elections that it comes around when bonds and levies are there. It's not normally connected to any other election, so they can come and go kind of quickly and can be unnoticed. But we want you to take notice of this one and vote yes for schools. If you have questions about what the bond or the levy will do in your particular school district, call the district offices. I'm sure they would be glad to connect you with people who can explain the process and what the bond or the levy will be used for. If you're the parent of a preschool child, please read with your child 20 minutes a day. It's one of the best things you can do to get them ready for their education. And while you're at that, throw in some counting and number games to get them interested in math. If you're the parent of a school-age child, get involved with your child's education. There are many ways that you can volunteer, as we heard today, all the volunteers in our schools. Your child's principal or teacher or people at the district office can certainly share with you the many ways that you can volunteer in your child's schools. For all of us here at the Roundtable, we'd like to thank you for watching and join us again in the spring.